Today we're going to be learning how to glaze our ceramic vessels. But first I want to talk about some safety items. One thing that's really important is that you don't eat or drink while you're glazing. You also should not put any glaze in your mouth and wash your hands if you get it on your skin. Glaze is made up of alumina, silica, and flux that creates a glassy surface when heated. Before we start glazing, we need to discuss the difference between bisqueware and greenware. Bisqueware has not been fired yet. You can see the difference in color. This clay is light. The places where that it hasn't been fired are still kind of brown. This has been fired. There's also a distinct way to hear the sound. So this is going to sound more like a thud if I tap it. This is going to sound more like a ting if I tap it. You do not use glaze on greenware. You only use glaze on bisqueware. The next thing we're going to do is put wax on the bottom of our pot. We do this so that glaze doesn't stick to it. This is an electric skillet with paraffin wax melted. I literally am just going to dip it in, and then that waxed area will resist the glaze from sticking to the bottom. I have waxed the bottom of my pot. I can choose a glaze. When I'm choosing my glazes, I want to make sure I look at a test tile first. There is a number on the glaze. The reason we use a test tile is because the color that's inside of this jar is not the color it's going to look like once it has been fired. So I'm going to check out the test tile board. I see number 36 is on this test tile, and it looks like this. So Mako wheat looks like this once it's fired. So I want to make sure I look. See, it looks a lot different in the jar as opposed to when it's been fired. This one is number 38, and it says number 38 on the jar. So make sure that you check out what the test tile looks like before you use glazes. Once I have chosen my glaze, my pot is here, the bottom is waxed, I can start glazing. I want to make sure that I use 3 even coats. First, you need to make sure you shake up your glaze really well. Before you shake your glaze, make sure the lid is on tight. A trick I like to use to make sure that I put 3 coats on is 1 coat, I will go vertical. The next coat, I will do horizontal. And that helps me remember how many coats I've done. In the inside of pots, I can actually pour the glaze in, swish it around, and pour it back into the container. If I do that, I only need to do 1 coat. Now I don't want it to pour it into containers that have holes in it, because obviously it will pour out the holes. When glazing, you do need to make sure the wax is wiped off. One important thing to remember about glazes is that glazes are not like paint. I can't necessarily mix these 2 glazes together to get like a light brown. So something that's really important is that when you're wanting to mix glazes, you make an extra test tile. On that test tile, you need to record how many of each coat you use for each glaze. So say I used 2 coats of this glaze on the bottom and then 1 coat of this glaze on top. I need to write that all down because of chemical compositions and chemical reactions. It could change depending on the direction in which you layer it. Now it's time to glaze your pot.